And welcome back, everybody, to our last 4 test hints. This is for the short answer questions on our Chapter 2 regular chemistry test.
Yes.
So, test hint 32 says, describe how you would separate a heterogeneous mixture. And you need to identify the different phases. So, let us use one of my favorite examples of a mixture, the hot fudge sundae, where we have delicious vanilla ice cream. We have awesome fudge sauce. We have, I like it with peanuts on mine.
Yes.
Whipped cream, cherries.
Sprinkles.
Sprinkles. Okay, sprinkles.
Yes.
So how would we separate this mixture, and what actually are the phases?
I would eat it and let my intestines separate.
I think that takes it to chemical, though.
Okay.
So one might pluck the cherry off the top and
eat it.
consume that, and one might take all the whipped cream off and eat that. One might take their spoon and break all of the fudge sauce off of there and eat that, and then maybe the ice cream, save the ice cream for last, or so on. But we would be physically separating the phases with a spoon.
Sure.
Or fingers, something like that.
Yeah.
Now, when you get your test question, please know that the hot fudge sundae is not an appropriate example for you to use for a
You
couple
have to do
reasons.
something else.
It's not the right number of phases because we're going to ask you for something specific. And we already explained that one, so we
Yeah.
want to see you show us something intelligent and something else.
Yeah.
All right.
Something that maybe that doesn't involve like actually picking things with your hand. Like,
Oh, that'd be impressive if
That
they
would
could
be
throw in
so
some
nice.
of those methods of separation.
yeah, that don't involve, you know,
Right.
like tweezers, and I'm just gonna pick
Right,
off
right.
all of the peanuts. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
One of those scientifical
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
methods of separation.
Number 33. Explain the difference between an element and a compound.
Haven't we had this question like 5 zillion times on this test?
100 times. Both, well, actually, as I'm looking at it, all of the short answer questions.
Oh, yeah.
They're 2 parts, and you know, you guys have to deal with both parts. Please don't mess yourself up on losing points because
You only answered half the question.
you only answered half the question, and you might have given a great answer to the first half of the question, but we need the whole thing taken care of.
Right.
So please do both.
So this is where you're not just, trying to pick what you think sort of maybe might be the best answer because you're not sure. This is where you're demonstrating to us that you really do understand these concepts by putting it in your own words and your own explanation.
Right. So you really ought to know the difference between an element and a compound. And you need to know the difference between, it would probably be good to know the difference between a compound and a mixture.
Sure.
Because you can't just say that, sulfur and iron in a cup is a compound. It's not. They're just physically next to each other. So you need to be able to emphasize that you really do know the difference between a mixture of elements and a compound of elements.
And with the element. And you might want to go back to the kinds of things we talked about in the classification inquiry, maybe even use some of the codes to show the difference between those and understand that pure substances, there's 2 kinds. There are the elements and the compounds. People got hung up with that a little bit at first on that inquiry. Okay, 34. Describe some physical and chemical changes that are involved in cooking. So we're going to give you a cooking scenario. You'll be cooking a substance. And we want to know, I think, at least 2 physical and 2 chemical changes involved in that particular situation. And it'll be something that, you're familiar with.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not...
You don't have to be in Foods and Newts or a chef to be able to hash this out. Everybody's sat around a kitchen table while their mom was, cooking something, and you ought to be able to come up with a couple of each physical changes and chemical changes. And then that last one is state and apply the law of conservation of mass.
And again, we're going to give you a specific scenario, and you're going to have to explain how and why this demonstrates the law of conservation of mass, and do a part of that process. So again, I think, like Mr. Sussman said, if you go back and look at some of the questions in the multiple choice section of the test, that will give you some great hints for things in the short answer section. Material is not very challenging. We're not at the difficult part of chemistry yet. You really just need to take your time and make sure you're answering the question that's being asked. Okay, thanks for watching and good luck on your test.
Good chemistry too.
Good chemistry too.